Hello, everybody, and welcome to this afternoon session. My name is Eric Johansson. I am the editor of RegTech Analyst, and it's my privilege to hold and moderate this panel. I am joined by two experts in the field: Linda Hellström from GRC Watch and John Erik Setsas from Syndicate. And I'm very fortunate in that fact because they have lots more insights than I do. Just a quick note about RegTech Analyst. RegTech Analyst is a publication that, as the name suggests, cover everything in the RegTech industry. So funding rounds, trends, and regulations. So hopefully I have some expertise to help me moderate this session. But like I said, I have two very competent panelists here to help me out. And I will let them introduce themselves because it would be a little bit impertinent of me to do so. So, Linda, if you could start, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm the founder of GRC Watch, and it's a RegTech which actually solved a problem I had myself when I was working for 12 years in the fund industry. So I have been both on the buying side and on the selling side of RegTech, and it's been quite interesting to learn about the different perspectives. Yes, and that's why I think this discussion is really interesting.
Amazing. Yeah, as we will be talking about this throughout the conversation, I think your insights will be more than valuable. John Erik, could you tell us a little about yourself?
Yes, of course. First of all, thank you for inviting me on this panel. It's always exciting to discuss these kind of topics because I meet them all the time. I work for Syndicate. I've been with Syndicate for 6 years now, and I work with identities. I've been working with identities in one form or another for 25 years now, and seen a lot of different aspects of that. So my entry point into the regulation is from the identity perspective about individual. How do you get to know people? Why do you need to do that? Different ways of doing, what regulations are in place around that. So that's my input on this regulatory discussion.
Excellent. Like I said, two people with great insights to help us out. We are going to talk about how to get and how to stay compliant in this modern world we find ourselves in. And to get to that, I think we also have to talk about RegTech or regulatory technology and how we kind of got started. And usually when people in the industry talk about it, they would say that the 2008 financial meltdown was the thing that set it all off because we saw all these new regulations coming in. And we have seen an absolute wave of RegTech companies coming up as a response in the last decade. However, John Erik, you told me earlier that you actually want to date it a few years earlier. I wonder if you could tell us why you would like to do that.
So a lot of the audience probably remember the Enron case back in around year 2000. And that resulted in the SOX regulation. And I was working with identity management systems at the time. And this really got a really important part of the solutions we're creating, like setting up important segregation of duties, for example, which was important. That was one of the problems around that. So from my perspective, that was actually one of my first meeting points with the regulation, with the SOX regulations back in 2002. And one thing I find really interesting with that is the penalties on that. Because a lot of regulations are, it's financial penalties, of course, which means in a lot of cases, well, we're just going to write this off on the result for this year, right? Well, the SOX regulation has personal penalties on the CEO. And it states, if it's a serious case, the CEO can go 20 years to jail and pay $2 million in fines. And I think that sort of penalties will change the discussion in the boardroom, as opposed to, okay, we can write off this amount on the result for this year.
Absolutely. Like you have had a crisis, you have new regulations. So absolutely. But if I understand it correctly, you're saying that after that, you had RegTech companies who responded to that crisis saying, guys, if you don't want to go to jail, you may need to tap into our solutions.
right? So I mean, it's a very strong motivation, right? I mean, if your organization, if you don't follow these regulations, you go to jail. It's different from, well, if you don't follow these regulations, I mean, you're going to be kicked out and get a parachute, and it sends. I mean, the SOX sends a really strong message that this regulation is important. We really mean business with this, and you have to comply. And I guess we haven't seen those kind of strong penalties in other regulations, but my guess is we're going to see more as we see these, horrible anti-money laundering cases and so on. I mean, we know the one in Australia not too long ago, etc.
Absolutely, and yes, that's a quick input. We are seeing that kind of individualized penalties coming into force around the world. For instance, in the UK, there is a conversation going on in the SMCR legislation that if there is a digital breach, as a hack attack or something, there should be one person who is ultimately responsible and who will face the penalties for that. So that's absolutely something that we're seeing a trend of. Linda, what do you think? Is 2008 the kind of starting point to the RegTech and compliance revolution, or what do you think?
Yes, it definitely is. And if tying back to what John just said, I mean, in order to report to the board in a proper way, I think that the responsibility of the compliance officer suddenly increased as well. And suddenly compliance officer needed a lot more data in order to assess compliance risks and create really good reports upwards. So I think that it was clear that you needed technology, but then I think that the challenge is for the financial institutes to really know which type of technology should they have and what kind of combination of technology should they have. So I think it's been clear in the market for quite some time that technology is needed in order to be compliant, and that you need both human people and technology. You cannot have an automatic tool, even if it sounds amazing. So of course, the financial crisis clarified that.
John Eric, you would like to add anything to that?
No, I mean, it increases focus. We get more aware of this. We see these, breaches and challenges, and that, increases the awareness of why do we need the regulations. It's, understanding that it's important to have these regulations. And I think we're getting more and more understanding that it's, this is not something we just have to do because somebody says this, but, well, take anti-money laundering, for example. I mean, why do we do it? Well, we want to fight terrorism and slavery, right? And do we want to do that? Well, obviously.
Absolutely. And like we said, in the last decade, we have seen an introduction of a lot of regulations to tackle money laundering, terrorism financing, financial fraud, reporting, know your customer regulations. We have this whole smattering of regulations that people have to be aware of, just in order to make sure that crimes doesn't happen and that they are conducted themselves in an appropriate way. But that also means that the environment that financial services find themselves in, or insurers or healthcare providers or any regulated service, is extremely complex. There's a lot of red tape that they have to cut through just in order to do business. And like you both said, then you need technology. You need someone to help you with these kind of solutions. But there are over 1,000 companies in the world that we are tracking at RegTech Analyst that are RegTech companies. With the ubiquity of services and solutions out there in the world, where should financial services start when they're looking for a solution to help them overcome this extremely complex regulatory environment that they find themselves in? John Eric, if you want to start.
So again, as you said, it's complex. It's so many of them. And again, our focus is on the identity part of this. We look at the onboarding. We want to be AML compliant, provide AML compliant onboarding for our customers. But we are, just a part of the puzzle. And I mean, AML is also transaction monitoring after the customer is onboarding. So, and I mean, that's where I think Linda has a lot more, a much broader picture on the whole regulatory phase.
You heard it, man. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No. If you have a question, please raise it.
No, I was actually going to say. Sorry, confusion.
So if the question is, I mean, where do they start? I think what has really, I mean, happened during the past, I don't know, maybe 10 years is really that, I mean, we sell a RegTech tool. It's a tool to risk assess counterparties so that they can do due diligence on each other and not sending emails and instead be in the same platform and do it. And I think that when we speak to the customers, we speak to the people who will actually perform the tasks. We don't first talk to the IT manager. Maybe that was the case 10 years ago. So I think, I mean, the process is usually that you start discussing in detail how they will use this particular tech in practice. And then after a while, they start analyzing, so how does this tech fit into our total stack? And I think that is where they sometimes end up creating like larger project of like selecting the right RegTech tool. And what we usually say is that they should just test a few tech solutions before they make the final choice, because usually when they test the solution, that's also a way of understanding how you can use technology, because I mean, obviously smart people create smart technology, so so they will also maybe find new routines if they find new features in new RegTech solutions, because if the tech is really revolutionizing the process and creating a new procedure. So I really think that, I mean, now I've been on the selling side for 5 years, and I used to be on the buying side, buying technology when I was working as a legal counsel and compliance officer. And I really think that it's really up to us as tech suppliers to make it easier for them to select the right tool and make it easier to buy the tool. It's not really a lack of resources on the buying side. I don't know if you agree with that, John, but I really think because sometimes we have to work together with other solutions, and then we should present a combined offer to the customer and solve their problems.
Exactly. I mean, and as you said, it is complex because there's so many regulations and they overlap, and but I think also, again, to state that, I'm sure you agree with me on this, Linda, that complying to regulations is much more than technology. It's about, you need to adapt your organization as well. So you can't outsource regulations. I mean, it needs to be intrinsic to your organization. You need to change procedures, improve procedures, and that's also an important and that's educating on that part as well.
Yeah, and just maybe to add on that, you said you can't just buy technology and then suddenly you're compliant. I think the more you use the technology as well, it will be more clear in your policies and procedures how you actually use the technology in practice. And you have to start somewhere and then improve for every year. So maybe you will utilize the technology in a completely different way in 5 years' time, because then the organization has a higher level of knowledge regarding how to use the technology. So it's really about not being afraid of testing new solutions, since many of us are really focused on a specific compliance challenge. So they will not be able to find one tech supplier who will make them compliant with all possible regulations. That's more or less impossible.
Yeah, like a lot of things that I think the most important thing you mentioned there is the due diligence that as like a financial institution would have to go through, and as you said a few times, they have to test the different solutions that are out there. Just because they come across one doesn't mean that there might not be a better solution out there. I think a similar thing you said was that you have a solution at the moment, we should have some kind of foresight to look at what will the needs be in the years to come. What jurisdictions are we going into? What legislations are on the horizon? And you also mentioned that it's important that the RegTech vendors themselves make that due diligence process a bit easier, just so that the financial institutions can make those right decisions. Linda, I wonder if you could just expand a little bit upon that. How would you say that RegTech providers could help with that to make that decision a little bit easier?
Well, I think that, first of all, financial institutes have to comply with the regulations regarding IT security as well. And so when they are buying SaaS solutions and if they are storing sensitive data in that tool, they also have to comply with a lot of regulations as to which kind of SaaS provider can they select. And I think that we as RegTech suppliers, we have to be very transparent with the way we work with IT security and the way we handle personal data and help them understand how our IT security works, because otherwise they can't buy our services, at least not our services. We have to be really good at that. And we are super transparent with that because we think it's a regular obligation that they have to check all of their SaaS suppliers. So we have to make it easier for them, be transparent about that. And the RegTech suppliers need to think about that when we start the company so that we have a solid framework for IT security. And then maybe also, as I said before, like in the beginning, we solved one challenge for them. We helped them to risk assess counterparties in our network for due diligence. But usually what we tell them is maybe do not think of too many compliance challenges that you will have in the future. We will deal with them later on. So now, 5 years later, they are coming back to us and saying, oh, so now we need to start sending this kind of report. Is that something that you can solve in your platform? And now they trust us as a compliance platform. So then we can, of course, develop new services, or we can go out in the market and see, do we have any other RegTech suppliers who are really specialized on this and that we can partner with? So I think usually what I try to tell them is don't try to solve all of the problems right away. Start to be active, because just purchasing a technology will not make you comply, and you will have to start finding your own way of using that technology.
Yeah, and adding on to that, maybe again stating the obvious, but becoming compliant is a continuous process. It's not like, okay, now we're compliant, done, let's move on with the other business. But it's a continuous process. We keep on getting the updated version of the regulations. MLD5 is coming, PSD2 came out, we'll probably see IDES2, etc. So it's a continuous process.
Absolutely, I agree.
Right. And also to touch on part of that process again. I said I'm an identity person. I look at people and so on, and we are in part of the process where you first meet your customers, right? And you need to onboard them, and you need to know who they are, and this is a challenging process. And we found that financial institutions, they lose about 62% of their potential customers in this process. So we did a research on that. You can look it up on our website. It's called The Battle to Onboard. And this is for getting the user perspective. You need to think about people. You need to, make the processes for the people you meet as simple as possible while still complying to regulation, which is challenging. But part of that is also educating people in general. I'm not sure they understand why do they have to provide all this information when onboarding to banks. So, it's in addition to sort of doing a good process, it's also an educational part of it, telling, hey, dear customer, you're being onboarded to a financial, we have to comply to the anti-money laundering directive. That's why we collect all this information. Or people are going to run away, like 62% abandoned. It's a big number.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you're bringing that up, John. And maybe if I can add something there, I think that it's not just about making them compliant, because what John is talking about is, of course, also to bring a positive effect to their business so that they are not losing business. And if we as RegTech suppliers can show them that if you use this tool, you will be compliant, but you will also get a better result of your business. I mean, that's good for both parties. So I really think, and also regarding educating the user, I think that now I will generalize a bit, but I think that SaaS solutions today are a lot more focused on the actual users. We don't see it as selling our services to a company. I see the individual on the other side, and we're in constant contact with them, trying to understand how can we improve our features and services to make them even more compliant and like it even more. So we are very close to the users, and I think that's a big difference from software in the past. And I think that it's a great opportunity because I don't think that compliance people maybe who buy RegTech solutions have been really used to UX-friendly SaaS solutions in the past. Maybe I'm too
No, but I
generalistic
think
here
you're
now.
right. I mean, another result we saw from this Battle to Onboard report is what we call learned helplessness. Like, with the older people get, the more accepting they are to all these, terrible onboarding processes. While, the Generation Z, they, find the processes painful. The older people say, well, this is okay. We're so used to all this crap. And but yeah, definitely important to have that understanding of the people that are involved. And again, from identity perspective, most people don't really understand or care about this digital. I mean, I'm here, you should just recognize me, right? Thinking like the old village, right? You met somebody, everybody knew who they were. And why don't you know who I am? I know who I am. So
yeah, and maybe also if sorry, we're like have so much to say here, but maybe coming back to the compliance role as well, I think that what has happened, at least within our field, is that, I mean, MiFID II triggered a lot of obligations on the financial institutes, and I think that the compliance officer today has to work has to understand the business of the company a lot more and work closely with the management and be part of the product and service development process. So I think that the role is a lot more business oriented today than it was in the past, and therefore the role requires a lot more technology as well. So it's not like maybe in the past it was more. I mean, at least when I was working as an independent compliance officer, I was sort of like on the side watching what was going on in the business. But I think that today the link is a lot shorter.
Absolutely. I think there was a really good insight there as what a company needs to do in order to get that compliance solution buying process right. Like, get the buy-in from the people who are going to use it, making sure that you are aware of what you're not aware of, making sure that you do your due diligence, test the products, have continuous conversations both with the people in your company, with regulators, and with RegTech vendors. So there are a lot of good insights that both of you have given there that I feel that the sector will definitely benefit of. We only have a few more minutes. So I wonder if you could spend those last minutes looking to the future, because like we said at the top, crises have kind of created this RegTech environment, this complex regulatory situation that financial institutions and other regulated firms find themselves in. We are now in the midst of a pandemic. Hopefully there is a light at the end of the tunnel with more vaccines being rolled out. So hopefully we'll all be able to meet each other and hug each other and shake each other's hands soon. But there is probably going to be a recession. There's probably going to be regulations. So in these final minutes, I wonder if you could just look into your crystal ball and tell me what you think this will mean for compliance in the years to come.
Yes, maybe I can start. I think that what we noted even before COVID-19 is that maybe in the past when we received a new set of regulations and maybe that triggered the need to create a number of new reports, then we more just automatically did it because we needed to be compliant and we did most of the work in a manual way. But I think what we have seen is that financial institutes today, they understand that, yes, now we suddenly have a new piece of regulation, but instead of just starting to create an extra report, they step back and really try to think, can we do this in a really smart way? How can we minimize the work so we don't create unnecessary work? How can we use the tech to do some of the work, maybe automate as much as possible? But I think that they take the time to analyze that more now, and they will do that more in the future as well, and not just get more and more reports. Because if we do, in the end, I mean, how will we be profitable selling things in the finance sector? I mean, we really need to use technology to solve the compliance challenges in a smart way.
No, I mean, completely agree. And you said a smart way. I mean, the challenge, we are being overwhelmed by regulations. And on the one side, yeah, they are important. We must have them, and then we need to handle them in a smart way. I mean, mentioning crisis, of course, we are, as you said, in the middle of one, and this is challenging. And I mean, it's forced digitization a lot. I mean, a lot of companies have been forced to go digital because, I mean, it's not an option to meet physical. But this also means we're getting a lot of inexperienced people online, a lot of people that are not used to working online, they're used to working in physical environments. I mean, both customers, but also employees working from home. And I mean, identity impersonation frauds have almost doubled during COVID. So, I mean, if I was working in the fraud business on the dark side, I mean, this is a huge opportunity, right? It's a business opportunity. Wow, we're getting all these inexperienced people, how can we make the best out of this? And, so we need to fight that. We need to make simple solutions for people that they understand and then protect them. Like I said, most people, they don't really want to bother with this. They just want to do their business, right? And same with companies. They want to go on with their business, but we recognize that we have to have these regulations to protect businesses, to protect people from themselves, and also society as a whole. So regulations are important. I think if you asked about the future, I think we'll see more penalties because currently we're seeing the AML frauds are just being written off on, almost like it's calculated. And if you change that to make it more personal, I think we're going to get a change of the focus on the boardroom on the compliance with regulations.
Absolutely. I do apologize for that ringtone now, but that just means that our time is sadly up. But what I'm hearing from both of you is that there are lots of things to come. Like the digitalization efforts of compliance is only going to accelerate because the threats are growing as well. Linda and Jan Erik, thank you both so much for talking to me today and for sharing your insights with the audience. And it's been great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having this and a good discussion. We could go on for a long time, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
I would have loved to, but I think that the Stockholm FinTech Week people might be a little bit upset if you do. But
yeah.
we'll continue this conversation somewhere else. But thank you so much.
Thank you.